coworkers doing this. They're having a little fun at our expense.
The Belko Experiment plunges its characters into a nightmare that feels both horrifyingly plausible and deeply unsettling, exploring what happens when ordinary people are forced into an extraordinary and brutal situation with no clear way out. What begins as a routine workday in a mid-sized corporate office in Bogota quickly dissolves into chaos, fear, and moral collapse as employees are abruptly confronted with a dire ultimatum: kill one of their own or be killed themselves. This simple yet chilling premise becomes the engine of the story, revealing not just how thin the veneer of civilization can be, but how quickly fear can warp human behavior when survival is at stake. The film's tension isn't built on external monsters or supernatural threats, but on the terrifying reality of people turning against each other under extreme pressure, making every scene pulse with psychological dread even as bodies begin to fall. From the earliest moments, there is a sense that something about the workplace is off, even before the violence begins. The employees of Belko Industries go about their jobs like any other day, engaging in casual conversations, dealing with coworkers they sometimes like and sometimes dislike, and navigating the routines that define adult life. This mundanity is essential to the story's impact. It reminds the audience that these are not trained soldiers or hardened criminals, but people whose greatest concern that morning might have been an upcoming report or a strained relationship with a colleague. This normalcy makes what comes next feel all the more jarring, forcing viewers to recognize themselves in the characters before any blood is shed. The experiment begins without warning. Automated announcements over the office intercom explain the rules in clinical, emotionless tones. If a certain number of people are not killed within designated timeframes, everyone will be executed. There is no explanation given for who is orchestrating this, why it is happening, or whether escape is even possible. The ambiguity is intentional, amplifying the psychological horror by denying meaning or motive. The lack of explanation forces the characters and the audience to focus on the immediate reality of their predicament. They must choose between cooperation and brutality in order to survive. Initial reactions among the employees vary widely, reflecting the diversity of human response to sudden crisis. Some immediately recoil at the idea of killing another person, unable to fathom taking an innocent life even under threat of death. Others react with disbelief, seeking logical explanations or hopeful loopholes in the instructions. A few individuals display irritation, anger, or cynicism, frustrated by the absurdity of the situation. This range of emotional responses lays the groundwork for conflict, as people cling to their moral frameworks even as the pressure to act mounts. These early moments are tense and awkward, fearful negotiations and desperate reasoning, revealing how even in extreme danger, the trappings of normal social behavior persist until they can no longer be maintained. As the clock ticks down and the first death toll looms, panic sets in. The group dynamics shift rapidly. Distrust replaces camaraderie, alliances form and dissolve, and the idea of killing another human being moves from inconceivable to unavoidable. What makes the Belko experiment striking is how it charts these changes incrementally, showing how fear erodes empathy and rational thought. Characters who once bonded over trivial arguments or shared coffee breaks now find themselves calculating how to preserve their own lives, sometimes at the expense of those they once considered friends. In this sense, the film becomes less about spectacle and more about the unraveling of moral order. Physical violence in the story is visceral and shocking, but it is the psychological dimension that carries the weight of the narrative. Each death, each betrayal, each desperate choice chips away at the group's humanity, reinforcing the idea that survival instinct can overpower long-held ethical principles. Even when characters attempt to organize a rational response, forming plans, searching for exits, or trying to communicate with the unknown forces controlling the experiment, these efforts are continually undercut by fear, chaos, and the unpredictable behavior of their fellow captives. The tension is relentless because the threat is not slow monsters or ambiguous danger. It is the very people they once trusted, now driven by fear, greed, or simple desperation. Certain characters emerge as reluctant leaders, trying to mediate between the instinct to kill and the instinct to preserve a shred of moral dignity. These figures are often torn between protecting others and protecting themselves, creating internal conflicts that resonate with viewers. They represent the struggle to uphold human decency in conditions that seem designed to destroy it. Watching them attempt to hold on to their values only to find those values slipping away under pressure is a powerful and uncomfortable experience. These moments elevate the story beyond graphic violence into a deeper exploration of psychological survival. As the experiment intensifies, betrayals and alliances become more pronounced. Some individuals adopt a ruthless pragmatism, justifying their actions as necessary for survival. Others cling stubbornly to their humanity, refusing to shed blood even as their numbers dwindle. These contrasting approaches lead to devastating confrontations, where choices are not clearly right or wrong, but born out of fear, confusion, and primal instinct. The audience is left to grapple with the unsettling question of what they themselves would do in such a situation, blurring the line between spectator and participant. The environment of the office building itself plays a significant role in heightening the horror. Spaces that once felt mundane and familiar, cubicles, conference rooms, hallways, are transformed into arenas of terror. The banality of the setting intensifies the violence because it underscores how close to everyday life the nightmare feels. It reminds viewers that terror does not always happen in far-off places or fantastical settings. It can emerge from the most ordinary environments when circumstances distort the rules of society. Midway through the story, the characters begin to question whether the experiment is simply a test of survival or a deeper commentary on human nature. Some argue that the situation reveals the inherent brutality of humanity, while others insist that it demonstrates how external pressure can warp even the most compassionate individuals. These debates, often shouted over the din of panic and violence, add a layer of philosophical complexity to the narrative. The story does not offer easy answers, instead leaving viewers to ponder whether morality is innate or conditional, stable or fragile. Escalation in the Belko experiment is relentless. Even as the characters discover clues or conceive plans to resist, the rules shift, forcing them to adapt constantly. This unpredictability mirrors the psychological terror of being trapped in a scenario where logic and control have been stripped away. Every attempt to regain agency is undermined by new threats, new manipulations, and the ever-present countdown to more deaths. There is no respite, and the tension never fully abates. In the final act, the emotional and physical stakes reach their peak. Remaining survivors find themselves pushed beyond limits they never believed they would cross. The choices they make, whether to sacrifice themselves to save others, to betray friends for a chance at freedom, or to stand firm in their moral convictions despite overwhelming pressure, define the core message of the story. These moments are raw, unflinching, and heartbreaking, illuminating the paradox of human strength and vulnerability. The climax does not offer a simplistic resolution or a triumphant escape. Instead, it emphasizes the cost of survival and the irreversible transformations wrought by trauma. Survivors who emerge at the end are irrevocably changed, carrying the psychological weight of what they were forced to do and witness. The film leaves audiences with lingering questions about the nature of humanity, the pressures that reveal our darkest impulses, and the resilience required to hold on to compassion in the face of relentless fear. What makes the Belko experiment resonate long after viewing is not just the shocking violence or intense action, but the way it reflects on human psychology under extreme duress. It strips away the comforts of ordinary life to reveal the raw, often disturbing instinct to survive at all costs. In doing so, it challenges viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about morality, self-interest, and the fragility of social bonds when survival hangs in the balance. The story ultimately stands as a stark exploration of moral collapse, resilience, and the price of survival in an engineered nightmare. It dramatizes a scenario that is horrifying not because it is impossible, but because it feels disturbingly possible, grounded in the dark corners of human instinct. Through its relentless tension, psychological complexity, and emotionally charged confrontations, the Belko experiment leaves a lasting impression that lingers long after the credits roll, prompting reflection on who we are when the structures of society fall away and only raw humanity remains.